have now tuned into Insight Sundays, the show that brings you relevant news, youth topics with a new mission and focus for our community. Here is your host, Adrian Mickens.
What's going on, Indianapolis? It's your main man, Adrian Mickens, once again for another edition of Insight Sundays, presented by Harambe Production here on AM 1310, The Light. On today's show, we're going to have a topic on the future of our education. We have our all-star panel in the house today, in which is we're going to go down the line here in just a second. But right before we do that, we're going to give a shout out to all of our sponsors, which is Andrew J. Brown Academy, Indiana Christian Leadership Conference, or ICLC, Buttons and Bows Hair Salon, Bethesda Southeast Campus, New Vision Lighthouse Ministries, Lighthouse Academy Charter Schools, Vitality Bowls, Sam Ash Music Store, and Beach Grove Bible Church. All right. So now that we got all of our sponsors out of the way, we're going to go down here through our panelists that we're going to be talking about the future of our education. Again, as I said, this is an all-star studded panel that we have today. Top educators and top administrative leaders in our city. We're going to start here to my left and go all the way down the row.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jeffrey Payne, Director of Bands and Orchestras at Winding Ridge Elementary, or School of Inquiry and Performing Arts, where I teach band and orchestra.
I'm Tamika Payne, Assistant Principal at North Central High School in Washington Township.
Hi, Indianapolis. I'm Valerie Miller, Assistant Principal at Indianapolis Lighthouse Charter School South of Student Services.
Hi, everybody. This is Seila Ceballos from Andrew J. Brown Academy. I'm the Family Student Liaison for the Charter School.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and just jump right into it because I know we have a full house today in 30 minutes, so I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to give their personal thoughts, comments, and opinions. Also, too, as well, for all of our virtual fans out there who likes to tune into the show, as always, we are live on Facebook, so tune in to us on Insight Sundays on Facebook or any other social media site, Instagram at Insight Sundays, Snapchat at Insight Sundays, or Twitter at Insight Sundays, where we have our Motivational Mondays. And I forgot to say happy Super Bowl to everybody out there in the city. I think everybody is going to go for the Falcons, I believe, because the Patriots always win. So, with that being said, we're going to move on to our first question. I'm going to start here with Brother Payne, and we're going to work our way around. The first question is, how should the federal and state handle the finances when it comes to education? The reason why I asked that question is because, you know, there's a lot of schools, and I hate to sound prehistoric in a sense, but there's a lot of schools that have with, and there's a lot of schools that have without. And in a time where we're living right now where technology is progression, some schools are without heavy technology like iPad resources, top computer resources. I'll give you an example. I remember one time I went to Lawrence Central High School. Their library was full of iMacs. You go to another school, they just getting Chromebooks. So you can see where the curve is a problem. So what do we need to do financially to make sure that all schools, federally or by the state, spending the money correctly?
I think recognizing the individual needs of that school and or district. Not all schools need the exact same amount of money. Equality doesn't always mean equity, or equity and equality don't mean the same. So you can't just give all the schools X amount of dollars and expect them to use them all the same. Some of those schools would absorb that money a little quicker because there's a greater need. So recognizing the financial need of that building, the academic needs, the administrative support, teacher support, taking all that in consideration.
Well, let me ask you this question, and, you know, you can answer it the best way that you feel. What would you say would be the difference in the need of an inner city school or charter school versus a township school? What would be the difference in the need?
I think if you had asked me that 20 years ago, the answer would be different, because 20 years ago, the township schools seem to be pretty self-sufficient, well supported by its local community, and the inner city schools, of course, seem to be in a state of lack quite a bit. Now, many of our township schools are becoming more urban with the demographic that we're serving. And so with that being said, there's still a need for the township schools to receive funding. My wife and I often look at TV and see how many of the athletes and professional organizations would reach out to these inner city schools, and she would say, wow, why not some of the township schools? And I think it's because traditionally the township schools have been more self-sufficient, but there's need there as well.
Gotcha. I understand. That was very, very good feedback. So, Mrs. Payne, we're going to come on down to you. I know that you are the assistant principal at North Central High School. So you definitely get the dirty work when it comes to disciplinary action, when it comes to the students at a township school. Obviously a lot more bigger, dealing with the amount of what's the student count at North Central?
We're close to 3,700.
3,700 students that you deal with a day. So I would say, how many of them come to your office in a week?
Well, they try to stay away from offices, which is good. But, I mean, between the dean's office and the assistant principals, I mean, that number can fluctuate. You may have as little as maybe 20. It may be something simple as a conversation. And then you may have some that just forgot that they came to school to get an education, and then you have to go and take it to the next level.
Gotcha.
So with a lot of students that come to me, it's because either A, there was a serious discipline infraction. We're either talking about attendance, or we're also at the brink of possibly where we may have to recommend for expulsion for whatever reason that is. But it's got to be when all options have been exhausted. But my whole goal with kids, I tell them our number one goal is for you to get an education, and you need to be in class. When you are not in class, when you're in the dean's office or an administrator's office, learning is not taking place. And so then you get behind, and then because you're behind, some may put up that pride wall. And then the next thing you know, you're acting out. Well, here you go again. Then I have to take it to the next level and then get your parents involved. I always give kids an option. You fix it, because if you don't fix it, I will.
Yep. No, that's true. And, just to piggyback on there just a little bit, what I had asked Brother Payne, but meaning specifically on the federal and state level on what they can do to assist you as an administrator with the regulations, things that you have to abide by, because there's just certain rules and regulations. We can't stretch too far for the things that we really want to do from a disciplinary standpoint. But we know, because we talked about it before with Betsy DeVos, Trump's pick for nominee for the Secretary of Education. I don't know if everybody else have seen her video clips on YouTube or on Facebook. I'm just going to be honest, from my personal opinion, she's not the right candidate. And I've watched that whole press conference quite a few times, or hearing, I should say specifically, quite a few times, and she's just not qualified. I mean, you talked about the comment where I believe it was Elizabeth Warren, who's the senator of Massachusetts, or one of the other senators, asked her about gun control in the schools, and she talked about another state in grizzly bears, meaning they had security fences for grizzly bears in their state. Like, I don't know if it was like Colorado or something like that. And the reason why I say that is not because she just said grizzly bears, but at a severity level of what that hearing was about, clearly we're talking about the safety of students with all the shootings from Columbine back in the 90s or early 2000s all the way up to the present day, where stuff is still happening at schools, college, universities, everywhere. I know that you guys have 2 college students now.
Yes.
2 college students, and they're nowhere near Indiana. So, you see what I mean? So, we're dealing with a whole new animal. So what can federal and state do to help you as an administrator with regulations? Should they reduce them? Should they increase some of them? What do you think they should do?
Well, I'm sure the other ladies on the panel will probably have something to chime in on it too, but I really feel it starts at the top. And when I say at the top, the legislators first have to know what the needs are. You can't know what the needs are if you don't come inside of the building to see what's going on. You don't know what's going on. I feel people can make opinions or make decisions or whatever from a desk at a remote location, but you can't make that decision if you don't know what the needs are.
Yes.
Some of our schools are 50, 60, 70% free and reduced. And with that not only comes with the money as far as free and reduced for lunch. I mean, we're talking about textbooks. We're talking about needs. We're talking about basic needs. Kids come to school. Sometimes the only meals they eat is what they have for breakfast and lunch, and maybe a snack before they go to athletics.
Yes.
So I really believe that it's got to start from the top, from the legislators. Get out your offices, come to the schools, and see what's going on.
Yeah.
And then when you see what's going on, do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
in order for, federal, we can say we need this kind of federal money here and we need federal money there. And that's very well true.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got to start from at the top until they see what is really needed, so that way those funds can be released.
Gotcha.
We're going to continue to fight this battle.
Gotcha. Absolutely. So we're going to come on down here to Valerie. Now, Valerie, I know you just gave a signal. You said you didn't see like the Betsy DeVos, her whole hearing thing or whatever. So I'm going to fill you in. Basically, she got grilled by quite a few Democratic senators, to be specific, because there were some Republicans who were there who were trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if you got a chance to see that too, Brother Payne, but I mean, you can't give somebody the benefit of the doubt when they just flat out don't know. They were asking her some pretty substantial questions about finance, specifically Bernie Sanders, I believe he's the senator of Vermont. And, he was asking her, have you ever handled any money as far as like millions or thousands of dollars, in a sense where you have to keep this for an organization or anything far and few in between? And, she just looked at him flat out and said, no. This is not like, we're having a student body president. This is not petty cash. This is for the nation. Do you know how to regulate this money? Do you know how to properly disperse this money to give it to who's really in need? The reason why I asked that question is because it kind of tethers into schools hiring the correct teachers and just throwing them in the classroom. And that's kind of why I feel with the Secretary of Education, what Trump is trying to do with her, he's just throwing her in the mix because she has a nice face and a pretty smile, but that does not cut the mustard. We get a lot of teachers who's in class who has a nice pretty face and a pretty smile. You look good for the photograph when everybody comes in the room and puts you on Facebook. But if you really sat in that classroom, it's chaos. So what would you suggest on the proper hiring of the right teachers for the school?
So, Adrian, I would think first our teacher retention plans in our schools, I think they need to become a lot more solid. We are getting people that don't have the true picture of education. Education is long hours. Education is grading papers at home. It is staying late, talking to parents. It is tutoring. And I think our undergraduate programs are doing a disservice to some of our students that are going to school for education by not giving them the whole picture. But I do also think at the same time, as schools, we can build in more professional development, more ways to have them ready. But as far as Indiana, we have a teacher shortage going on here, and that's something as administrators at the level where we need to go back to the universities. Why aren't kids wanting to go into education? What can we do to help? Maybe there needs to be more partnerships, more times that they spend in school instead of just the core classes, but more hands-on experience, getting them in tutoring children before and after school so they can get under their belt before they're in that classroom. They decide it's not for me, and then we have several students that are at a disadvantage because teachers are leaving.
Well, let me ask you this question. Why do you think that the teachers are leaving? Or when they graduate, they have the high ambition to be a teacher. They get in the classroom and, this is not for me. Why do you think that they leave so fast?
I think a lot of it has to do with work-family balance. They come from college, they're in love, they get married, then they have these babies. Well, I want to stay at home with my baby. But then I still want to teach, like they want to impact students in some way, but the hours are just so long. And some of the requirements that are coming down from the legislation, because they're not in the buildings, they're thinking just as personnel, not as actual people. Some of the demands are a lot. And so they're not able to juggle all of that at one time.
Yeah. And I will say this, obviously, from a little bit of experience there, with Lighthouse, you have to have a great deal of patience. And if you do not have patience, the job is not for you. And I'm just speaking to teaching period because it's all over. As Brother Payne said, 20 years ago, the answer would have been different, but now, it's all over. And you have to have serious patience to deal with each individual student because they have each individual needs. And now we have a thing where the Republicans are saying, well, of course the liberals, and I'm not sure if everybody here is Democrats, but they're saying, we're whining. Or the Democrats is whining, and so they're trying to tidy up on that, on our whininess, but it's too many rules bad. you know, because then you'll get into a situation where everybody's life is different, and progress of education has changed in regards to when you go to the workforce. Everything isn't a steel mill job in Gary that you're going to work for the next 40 or 50 years. You know, we have machines who can produce this steel without somebody there. You know, I'm just being realistic. You know, my father, that was one of his second jobs, prime time jobs as far as like making some real money before he moved here to Indianapolis, was working in the Gary Steel Mill. But even that's getting ready to, you know, go to the, you know, wayside here pretty soon. So everybody's in Indianapolis was excited when Trump, quote unquote, brought back Carrier. But in terms of that, which is what I'm going to, you know, follow up with you on, Mrs. Ceballos, and that is, everybody was excited to get their job, quote unquote, back at the Carrier company. But in that same token, you have students, minority students, being disrespected. So is the almighty dollar worth the value of people? That's really, I mean, to me, that's really what it boils down to. The almighty dollar is worth the value of people. And everybody who voted for him, I really studied this long and hard. They're all about Trump bringing jobs. That's it. That's all they care about is the money. They don't care if somebody get a church with a swastika on it, which happened here in Indianapolis and other states. They don't care about students in California being made fun of, talking about build a wall and different things like that. So what would you say that you've seen and experienced? You can turn the mic around just a little bit, that you've experienced or heard in the Latino community as far as, you know, bringing forth awareness, and what should they do to make sure that things doesn't happen to them that they don't want to happen?
Well, basically, like at this point, it's causing a lot of fear in our communities, especially the kids. It's gonna have an impact on even on tests, on ISTEP results, because the kids are stressing out. And it's causing parents to be afraid, and they're getting ready for the worst.
Yes.
You know, and it's really sad because like you mentioned, a lot of people vote for Trump for works, you know, for jobs, and it's having an impact where people is planning to go back to their countries and leave jobs here, and I believe it wasn't worth it. It's causing a lot of damage in our country. Like you mentioned, I have in my office, I get students all the time, you know, crying because they are afraid of what's going to happen to their parents. And instead of using the time in the classroom learning, they are, you know, they're wasting it. And I don't want to say wasting it, but they're in my office or in the classrooms thinking about the situation, which we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, their mind isn't on what they came to school for. As Mrs. Payne just stated, you come to school to learn, and their mind is not on that. And we know this as adults, if your life ain't right, you're not going to be able to work the job that you want to work, because when you get there, your mind ain't even there, and more than likely than none, you're probably going to get fired because you're doing other stuff or thinking about stuff you're not supposed to.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to interject in addition to what she had talked about. In our school, we have about 60 countries or so that are represented in our population. So you can imagine for some of our kids how they feel. I had a student I was working with on Friday with his family, and his response was, well, why should I care? I mean, they're going to send me over anyway. And so I had to get him to get his mindset back to, no, we're not focused on that. We're focused on you learning and educating. Let's get you to do what you need to do so that way you can get better. So yeah, she's right. It is going to have a ripple effect, but we just got to work on keeping our kids focused, and that's where we need parents, we need community leaders, we need everyone to step it up and help us to help these kids.
Absolutely.
We need parents. We're not, I'm going to say it, we are not a day babysitting service.
Yes.
We are there to educate. And if we're there to educate, it takes a village, and a village is not one or two people. You know, I tell my kids all the time, 2 + 2 is not 7. So with that being said, it's going to take everyone to get this done. It's going to take the parents. It's going to take the ministers. It's going to take that person down the street. It's going to take that neighbor next door. I remember being in the neighborhood where if me and my sister got in trouble, the neighbor lit us up, and when my dad got home, we got lit up there too. So we just need that to come back. So.
Gotcha. All right. So on that note, we're going to take a quick break, but we're definitely going to come back, and we're going to kind of have a little wrap-up session here about the future of education. I hope everything as so far has been insightful. Once again, we have an all-star panel here today with Mr. Jeffrey Payne, Mrs. Tamika Payne, Valerie Miller, and Mrs. Ceballos in the house. So once again, we're going to take our commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to finish our topic on the future of education. Welcome back, Indianapolis. It's your main man, Adrian Mickens, and we're going to go ahead and get back into the show of the future of education here on Insight Sundays. We're going to do like a 30-second wrap-up question here with all of our panelists here today about what you guys think that we should do efficiently to stay connected with our youth and stay connected with the parents. We're going to start with Brother Payne and work our way around.
I think taking time to establish relationships with individual students and their parents, getting to know them, their needs, then we can take that in consideration as we deal with them and what we can do to draw the best out of each student with that information.
Gotcha.
I just think with parent communication is the key, and getting parent involvement, parental involvement, because we have your kids 6 hours of the day, but you have them the others. And so we need to have that connection. We can do all this educating at school, but when they go home, it just needs to be a continuation of what they did. So I really think parent involvement is really, really key.
Gotcha.
I agree, parent involvement, but I also think we need to get our churches and community members in these schools. We need dads walking the hallways. We need moms. We need everybody around. That grandmother that is retired sitting in the cafeteria. Come on, baby, let's do your work.
Yes.
Like, we need the whole community in the school so that our students can succeed.
And also be more understanding of other cultures. Like you guys mentioned, everything you said, it's right on point. But also understand that every culture or every community, it's different, and get to know the culture so you can connect with those parents as well.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm going to go back around, 30-second question again. What should we do now? Obviously, that Trump is now our president. He has created a system where people think that it's okay to spew hatred towards one another, and we have students spewing hatred towards one another. And hatred isn't necessarily just words, it's actions. You know, I've heard of a college student, South, I can't remember which state, a Caucasian male just pushed her off the sidewalk. Like this was 1960 all over again. Obviously we live in an informational age where everything is accessible to everybody. So this is something that he's seen and thought now he can bring back like a pair of tennis shoes, and that's just not getting ready to happen or go down. So what would you say, Brother Payne and everybody else, on what we should do for healing standpoint with our youth?
I'd tell the kids to stay focused and understand the difference between free speech and being offensive. Yes. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom to be mean-spirited and mistreating other people. So teaching the difference between the two and encouraging them to have character. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, character is higher than intellect. What you do is more important than what you say. So if we show them how to show the respect, that will be the first step in helping to spread that respect.
Gotcha.
I think in addition to that, we have to educate our students how to respond in a positive way. There's a difference between responding and reacting. Reacting is 9 times out of 10 is not going to end well. But if we teach them how to respond, understand that everyone was not raised, as my mother-in-law used to say, everyone's not raised from the same mother. So because of that, you've got to make sure that you keep you in check, because the only one you can control is you.
Yes.
And then show them how to effectively respond in a way that it doesn't come off where hatred spews hatred.
Yes.
I would say, agreeing with the other panelists, stay focused, educate, but we need to teach our children how to pray. The Bible says that we need to train them up, and so we need to teach them how to pray. If they're in these schools and they're praying, none of that is going to be occurring. So we just need to continue to teach them to pray.
And hold on one second before you say, say something, Mrs. Ceballos, because I want to say what Miss Valerie Miller just said. I've actually seen her live and in person praying in the school. Like, she ain't no joke. Like, seriously, before the doors opened, she was praying. So that's serious business.
And basically, what I tell the kids, to raise your voice, to know that you're special and you have a purpose here, and that we all equal and we all have struggles, and if something's not okay, we all need to be together and fight for what's right. I always tell them, as a Hispanic community, we're very passionate, and it is always to do the right thing. So it's raise your voice.
Well, once again, I do appreciate everybody who tuned in today with Insight Sundays, whether it was on Facebook Live at Insight Sundays or any of our other social media channels. Once again, the future of our education is important. We cannot play around no more. This is very serious. So many people have been, I won't even just say lackadaisical, but we get into a complacency of routine. We think the teachers are doing what they're supposed to do. We think the administrators are doing what they're supposed to do. And then when your child does something, you think your child does no wrong. That's an issue too in itself. That's a whole nother show within itself. But as everybody here said, we need parent involvement. We need you guys to step up. We need you guys to make sure that your child is happy at home so they can focus at school. It makes a world of a difference. I knew I wouldn't act up at school because I knew my dad was going to tear me up as soon as I walked through the door. Like, that was for real. Like, correct. And my mom was the ultimate mom. I'm about to tell your dad. And I'm sitting in the room looking up at the ceiling crying because I don't want him to go on right away looking at the clock, hoping it's going backwards and not forward. So we do need that. I won't hold you guys' time any more longer. We do appreciate everybody for tuning in to Insight Sundays.